Thank you for Brother Rahul for joining us. Thank you for being there from India.
Thank you, ma'am.
From Hungary, it's very difficult to judge what is the situation of Christians in India, since it is a majority of Hindu religion, and we only have the Open Doors statistics, and it's on a very prestigious place, in the 11th place, which means that the persecution of Christians is remarkable. So that's why we would like to make an attempt and try to understand the situation there. It's a huge country with 28 states and 7 federal districts, uh, and the population is 1.5 billion. So, how can you describe the situation of Christians, which is valid for all India, or does it change from state to state?
Thank you, ma'am, for that question. We have experienced, our nation experienced very unprecedented persecution in the last year, and there was a great eruption of persecution in several states, and such as Manipur and uh, Manipur, Chhattisgarh, and Uttar Pradesh, and many other, several others, which have faced a great lot of persecution uh, in the last year.
So it's only in the last year, but I suppose that there used to be other atrocities and attacks against Christians. What is the major attack that come against Christians in India?
Majorly, it is a religious conversion, uh, especially when a person from a Hindu community accepts the Lord. That is considered as illegal, and they have brought anti-conversion law, which confines the freedom of religion, and the person cannot, practice his faith. So, though in the Constitution it is provided that the right to religious freedom, but yet because of the attacks from the fanatical groups, uh, uh, that's from the fanatical groups uh, shows that there is no religious freedom.
Since when is there this anti-conversion law in India?
Several years, but especially from 2014, we have been having such anti-conversion law more emphatically, and it was given more importance in several states.
What were the atrocities in last year in Manipur and Chhattisgarh and the others that you mentioned? Were that more physical, or it were mostly according to this anti-conversion law that they were stopped from being converted?
Yes, when we see media and the information that is in social media, also the information that I receive, um, mostly in northeast part of India's Manipur, there are a lot of cutting each other, shooting at each other, and raping and parading women like never before in the history of India, and also dislocating many families. Many of the houses were destroyed. Mob violence, and a lot of mob violence in Manipur. As a result, one community against another community. I will not name the communities, but the communities are against each other, house burned and church destroyed, I think more than 2,000 houses were burned, and more than 2,500, all those places, houses were destroyed, churches were destroyed, the church buildings were destroyed. And this is only in Manipur. And apart from that, if you go to Chhattisgarh, it is like, mob violence again there, delisting Christians, and many of the attacks on the Christian community, and then false accusations and forceful imprisonments in Madhya Pradesh and in Uttar Pradesh. This is and also forceful conversions, and many of the churches were closed down, and there was mob lynching and misinformation campaigns of delisting, targeting Christian institutions and monitoring Christian activities, and many other such attacks. Even Garbhapsi, which we call forceful reconversion, uh, and such is the intensity of the trends that are happening in India.
How would you describe the attitude of the government? Does it mean that they don't prevent these attacks or don't defend the Christians?
Yes, not to comment on any government, but rather like there is no protection for the people, especially protection for the Christians. Though the cases are filed, they are not given proper treatment, lot of ill treatment, even from the police, even from the other departments, the department that try to protect people also doesn't show such interest in protecting people. But a government that has a strong Hindu ideology, the strong they follow Hindu ideology. Those governments are reluctant to give any help to Christians who are attacked because they have their own ideology that as a majoritarianism, and they give more preference to Hindu nationalism, and because of their focus of Hindu nationalism, so the minorities become second class, like a biased community, a community which is not relevant.
So Christians are considered to be a minority. How many Christians? How much percentage of the population can you call Christian, in your opinion?
Yes, according to the national population statistics, there are only 3%, 2.5, or sometimes 3% Christians are recorded. But in my opinion, there are more because those who are not recorded in the government census. Most of the people, they come to know that they accept the Lord Jesus, but they don't change their religion or caste. So in that sense, there would be more number of people, more number of Christians are, the presence of Christianity is more than what the government tries to project.
So it means that there are some Hindus who accept Jesus, but because of the lack of protection, they don't change their official religion or their official caste. But of course, we can call them Christians because they have Jesus in their heart.
Yes, that's right. Most of the people, because of the insecurity and also the economical security, some people don't disclose and their caste, and they don't change their caste or religion, but rather they follow Christ, and they're very secret Christians, and many of the churches are underground, and they don't try to profess outwardly. Rather, they follow very secretly.
It's understandable. So, how would you describe the everyday life of a Christian in India? Does it change from state to state, or most of them is underground, as you have just said?
Yes, it changes from state to state, and right now, the current places such as Manipur and Manipur or Chhattisgarh or Madhya Pradesh or Uttar Pradesh, these are the top five places where the persecution is intense. In these areas, the situation is very different, and whereas in some other states, or for southern states or some other states, are is not the same, but there is some freedom that Christians have. But whereas the top states which already mentioned, like Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and Manipur, all this, they have now the churches underground, and many of the people don't have freedom as they're supposed to have.
How
The
can
persecution is, but the persecution is present in all the states, but the intensity differs from state to state.
I see. So, if you can have an insight into the life of the underground Christians, how do they lead their everyday life?
Yes, it is every day in fear, especially in these states, which is not very easy to be a Christian. They live in fear because they don't know when the attack will come, from where the attack will come, when they will come and try to barge in and try to interrogate or intimidate or physically abuse them. So each time, even if any prayer, even if they wanted to have a personal prayer also, sometimes it's very fearful, frightening situation, and they secretly pray and read Bible in their rooms and secretly meet other believers. Even if the believer comes to meet the other believer, the fanatical groups come and attack. Why these people have come? And in some of the villages, some of the places, they erected the board saying that Christians are not allowed inside this village. No Christian is allowed to come into this village. This village is Christian free, or that's what they wanted to propagate. Such is the thing, and then every day they live in fear. So it's not that they can openly go and hold the Bible in some places, openly pray. No, they cannot. Even when they have religious gathering, even it is all they are in those because they have to watch out. Sometimes it's like first century Christians, they are worshipping in a very secret and difficult places, going in tombs and worshipping. Similarly, in some of the places they go to jungles and they go to very secluded places and they try to worship the Lord and try to pray.
So it must be a very, very difficult lifestyle. What do you think about the mentality of these Indian Christians? Do they keep their faith anyway? Can they be easily discouraged, or on the contrary, they are very courageous?
Yes, this is both ways. Like when this happens, yes, as a human they get discouraged, but we have great God and His Word that always strengthens them. That when we try to hear the testimonies, when I try to hear the testimonies of the people, they share the story, the experience that they went through. But in the middle of that, that the ray of hope, all the time, that they heard the voice of God when they went through that persecution, when they went through that, that attack. They heard the voice of God, or they saw the vision of God. Such thing that really keeps them alive and bold to face the persecution, and they feel privileged that we are privileged to be persecuted because the Lord has chosen them and such a time as this, and they stand boldly and witnessing the Lord. And you can see many of the lives still in Manipur that they won't recount their faith, though they are forced to recount their faith in by the mob violence. But yet they stand firm, testify, and stand strong against all those threatening, and still confess and profess the Lord.
How do they allow to spread the gospel? Of course, in secret, but how can we imagine this? That neighbors can share with each other and then they secretly pray and. Uh, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I cannot hear you.
In terms of, yeah, I think in terms of evangelism and all this, mostly it happens in person to person, personal evangelism in these areas, because the crowd gathering or a crowd or conferences are not allowed in these places. But then mostly this happens through personal evangelism, but yet some of the evangelists or some of the leaders who take bold steps and go even knowing that their lives are not secure, uh, knowing their lives are not secure, they will be intimidated, they will be beaten, they will be tortured, but yet they have strong faith and a strong sense of call on their life, that they trust in the Lord's protection and go. And mostly this proclamation happens through healing and deliverance in some of the places, and that's how the proclamation of the word or the gospel happens. Yes, in some cases it is they know each other, but in yet in some places in tribal areas and all, it is not so accessible to each one of them. So it is difficult. But when they come for some gatherings, some meetings, when they share their testimonies, when they share their uh, the experience that happened, so that's how they know each other, and that's how they be in touch, and they encourage each other in that manner. And one of the thanks to one social media, that because of social media, that they will be able to connect and know that so and so person happened, so we need to pray. So that's how they get connected and pray for each other and encourage each other. But in some of the remote areas, that is also not possible because there is no proper connections that they can really connect with people. So only in small gatherings they try to gather and then encourage each other.
So it must be very difficult to raise a family like that, because your kids has to go to school, and they have to learn what they are taught, but at home they are taught something else. Um, do you have any experience about family life in with Christians who have children?
Yes, in some of the villages, especially they are isolated. When they come to know that the family has accepted the Lord, they're isolated. And I know a brother, and when they accepted the Lord, when he accepted the Lord, the entire family was excommunicated. And when they were excommunicated, uh, they were also not given any basic facilities of water, common water where they can fetch water from the borewell or the community water, or and they are not part of the community, and they were not allowed to work in their fields and in other fields, or also other people are also were not allowed to work. The person who was excommunicated, they were also not allowed to work in his field. So nobody used to come and um, uh, nobody used to enter. Come alongside with them, rather excommunicate them, and also even the children are discriminated in the school, and they were like, they were mocked, saying that your father is excommunicated and you have become Christian, and so such kind of they are looked down. Even the children also are harassed that way, bullied by the other children, and that happens. And it not happens just for a day or a week. It goes for months and years, and they beat them. And even the basic your groceries also are they don't allow them to buy from the stores. Even the storekeepers uh, the storekeepers are also are banned, not to sell any grocery to such families who are excommunicated. So it goes to in any level. So even the water, even the school, or any other facilities, even sometimes the subsidy that they get from the government, sometimes they were also not allowed because of they are excommunicated from that. And each time they are attacked, abused, and beaten, abused and beaten, and that's how they are isolated.
But they still keep up, or do you have any experience about the kids? Because it must be very hard on kids.
Oh yes, it's very hard when they share it. Sharing for me it's easy, but when you really see and listen to those people, it's very difficult, it's very heart-wrenching, because it's living in a community and testifying and standing against all such pressures is not easy. And especially children are discriminated that way. And they come even, they don't even leave, they don't even, of course, if elders are excommunicated, elders are persecuted, okay, there is a sense, but even children are bullied that way and excommunicated, persecuted that way. It is a very difficult thing for them. But, as I was listening to that brother, he shared 3 times they attacked him, and after that they were excommunicated. And he was sharing. I asked him, in the midst of all this, how did you find strength? And then he shared, when everyone stopped talking to me, I used to hear God's voice. And that's how I draw my strength from Him. When no one used to talk to me, but my Heavenly Father used to talk to me and give me that strength. And the joy, he used to say, the villagers used to wonder. We excommunicated this family. We harassed them so much. But where did they get this joy? Where did they get this joy? And from where they're getting this joy? Every time these faces are full of radiance, full of joy. From where? So they're all wondering. Because then he shared, because the joy of the Lord is my strength. And I used to receive this because every day I used to listen to the voice of God. And that voice used to make us happy, strengthen us, and our children as well. And we used to comfort them. And that's how they keep going and keep pressing on the faith and standing strong.
That's very, very impressive, and it's very good to hear. Can I imagine that in bigger cities they can have openly churches, they can go openly to church, or it's the same everywhere, that it must be in one way or another secret?
Yes, in urban cities, yes, we have freedom, sense of freedom, that we can go to the churches, but yet from 2014 on, it has become difficult. Um, Freedom comes with limitation. We don't have full freedom that we can really go, but then even in urban cities are also not exempt of persecution. Even urban pastors, urban believers are targeted when they live in lanes and different streets. These street um, groups, many of the extremist groups that are formed streetwise, the area-wise and streetwise, they try to have heavy monitoring on such families and try to attack when they, have spiritual activities, even a small cottage prayer or a family prayer. So even in the cities, it is not so safe. Though we have communities, though we have several communities worshiping, but freedom comes with limitation.
As an activist from Open Doors for over a decade, you have an experience how to support them, but for themselves, how they fight for themselves. Is there any way that they fight back, or besides keeping their own face, is there a way that they try to protect their communities or themselves?
It is only through prayer and protest, that silent protest by the leaders. There is only such way that we would be able to protect each other, but there is no outrightly um, uh, an action that we would stand against any other group or any other form of organization that attacks Christians, but only through prayer and then silent protest and appeal to the authorities make us to protect our rights.
What about the authorities? Is there any place where the authority is cooperative with Christians, or it's because of the governmental propaganda and the Hindu attacks. They cannot do much, or they don't, or they won't do much.
I think most of the people, even the authorities even the authorities are on so much pressure, though they want to take any decision of, protecting the people, protecting the rights, but because of the majority government, they have to, they are pressurized by the Hindu extremists, especially, and that's why they are unable to serve justice or cater justice to people when we try to appeal. So they are biased, or sometimes they are silent, and they don't raise voice on it. They'll try to play with words, and they try to be neutral sometimes, but they don't take any action when there was an appeal. They won't come forward, but there is, uh, yeah, in most of the cases that is the thing. But some here and there, some people who try to really challenge and write against. So we hear such.
So altogether, it's not an easy thing, but the Lord is with them. The thing is that from Western countries, most people see India as a very, very peaceful place, and most of them go on trips to experience the Hindu peacefulness. And you describe, you paint a very different picture of India. What would you say to Westerners who look at India from their own perspective?
I think for people who are from abroad, from the Western country, India is hospitable and very polite, and never such a thing. Discrimination, never such discrimination for being a Christian, because it is most of tourism and more of it's a sightseeing and tourism, so it is not such thing as persecution for the Westerners or the people who visit India, but more for the people who live within the country, who tries to uh, confess or profess their faith as Christians. Only the difficulties. Um, from Westerners' point of view, there won't be any persecution because it's always hospitable. India is always have such accommodative and hospitable for such guests. So outwardly, it never discriminates anyone, but rather it's always peaceful. But yet, when you go deeper level, when you go like people who are uh, of the soil or is of the India, or such people only face and know the discrimination reality. Uh, yes.
Do you think that the Westerners should be aware of this double-faced society? That this is which is the true face of Hinduism? Then,
Yes. Yes, there is two faces of such. When you try to see um, when you when you see all the attacks that are happening, incidents of Manipur and many other parts, as I already mentioned, you can see the already the double face, though it tries to show the outward appearance to be different, but you can see the unprecedented, eruption of, dislocation of many people, the persecution that happened, and many people are on the streets. And such large scale of persecution you can see shows that it is not as it portrays, as India is so peaceful, but rather a lot of persecution and discrimination for the people who try to profess their faith. Yes.
Thank you very much for being with us. Is there anything else that you would like to tell us about India? Because we are very far and it's a very different culture, but we are brothers and sisters still, and we would like to understand as much as possible what is going on with our brothers and sisters in such a faraway country.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I would like to ask you to pray for India. We have an upcoming election, and in 100 days or so, we will have, or India will decide who will come to power. But this is very important that we are praying that God would establish a person who would do justice for the poor and the needy, and especially will not discriminate in the name of religion, but rather a person who will really look after the poor and the needy and try to keep justice. So please pray that the Lord would bring such people and pray for the persecuted brothers and sisters to stand strong in the midst of this persecution. And there are a lot of intimidations, that apprehensions in their heart that if that comes to power, if the the government which has a lenience to Hindu ideology, if that comes to power, they will have more number of incidents which happened in Manipur, and likewise it would have a spillover, it would have an effect in other places as well. So that fear is there. So we request you, as people of God, to pray. The Lord would give courage to the brothers and sisters, no matter what comes, that they would stand stronger and stand and testify in the midst of adversity. But pray that in the election, the Lord would send right people for the power. The Lord would raise right people for the power, and they would serve justice and equity. So please pray for that.
It means that also Indian Christians care for politics, for the election. They watch what is going on in the level of politics.
Yes, they do. And they also, a lot of prayers are happening that there would be, since a lot of, we have experienced a lot of persecution, and there are a lot of prayers from different communities. They have mobilized many prayers for the upcoming election, that the Lord would intervene and do justice in terms of people who are persecuted and mistreated in such a way, not caring for the weak, but rather, trying to put the agenda or their agendas rather than people. So please pray that the Lord, please pray that many of the people would pray also. Would we get some of the people in villages and are not aware of such thing? They don't know about such election. Only people in city only are aware. But pray that even in every state and every place where the Christians would come in unity to pray, and they would stand strong.
Is there any chance that a Christian can be elected as a representative or in any place in India?
Um, Actually, attempts have been made in the past, but there was never a person who really tried to represent Christians in India. Of course, there are people now, even if they're elected, they are suppressed because there are majority of the people are from the majority community, majority religion, and even if they try to voice it out, they'll be suppressed.
So that should be changed as well.
Yeah, yes. So yes, there are people trying to contest, but there are less chances to be elected.
So we are supposed to pray for that too. Thank you very much, and we will certainly pray for India. It is our great God that helps us, because we are just 10 million and you are 1.5 billion. But we believe that our God is great, and He will hear us our prayers, which we will certainly say. Thank you, Brother Rahul, for being with us and informing us.
Thank you, ma'am, for this opportunity, and thank you very much. And thank you for praying, and thank you for the assurance that you will pray for us.
Okay, thank you very much for the interview. We are going to use it very soon, and we are really grateful that you joined us and and sacrificed your time for us. It's very important for us to know what's going on there.